Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
Dear students, I, Dr. Shivang Patel, Associate Professor from School of Computer Science, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, welcome you all from the Chaitanya studio of Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University. In the lecture series of Python programming, in the last session we have discussed tuples and list. So, we have already discussed the list portion of that concept, in which we have discussed the basic difference between list and tuple. Now, we are continuing with tuple. So, as we have discussed in the previous session, what is the basic difference between list and tuple? So, whenever you are creating a list, whatever the items you are adding, or suppose it is required to change after creation of list, then it can be possible. So, you can say that it is the mutable sequence in the Python. That means you can change after creation. Now, the next concept, that is tuple. Suppose you are creating tuple with some of the elements. In that case, after that you cannot be changed. That is why you can say that they are immutable sequences, right. So, you can see tuple is an immutable linear data structure, as we have discussed. All are the sequences, and the linear data structure, two parts are there, tuples as well as the list. Now, list that can be mutable and tuples that are immutable objects. Now, it is used when you want that collection of items that should not be changed during the execution of the program. If it is required that whatever the items that you are including in that particular tuple that cannot be changed throughout the program execution, in that case you are using the tuple. Now, what is the syntax for tuple? So, in previous session we have discussed, if you want to create list, then you are requiring square bracket. Same way here, in the tuple, if you want to create tuple, in that case you have to use parenthesis in place of square bracket. So, there are two syntax, or you can follow these two statements for creating the tuple. First one, first you have to write proper name, proper identifier name as a tuple name. Then after equal to, that is assignment operator, and the right hand side you have to put parenthesis. Inside parenthesis you have to mention any values and all the values that are separated by comma. Now, the values may be anything, it may be integer, it may be float, it may be character, it may be string, or it may be mixed type, right. Same the concept as we have discussed in the list. Another syntax that you can follow to create a tuple, that is, you cannot use that parenthesis, simply you can use inverted comma. You can use value 1, whatever the value you want to put, then after all the values that are separated by the comma. These are the two syntax that you can use for creating a tuple. Now, on the screen you can see one basic demonstration how to create tuple. So, first tuple 1, that is the valid identifier. We have created this integer tuple 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these are the elements. As we have discussed in the list, also in the tuple the first element index value is 0, because you want to track, if you want to retrieve some of the element from the tuple, it is required to mention the index value, and the index value starts with the 0. We have also created another tuple that is of string type. You can observe tuple 2, that is A, B, C, D, E, F, P, Q, R, all are the string type. Then after we have created tuple 3 with another syntax in which we are using multiple kind of data. So, all 3 tuples we have created. You can observe in the output we have printed that particular tuple. So, first tuple that will be printed, that is integer, second one is that is string, and third one that is mixed, right. So, we have discussed multiple ways to create tuples, and one thing that you have to keep in mind, list that can be represented by square bracket, while tuple that can be represented by parenthesis. Now, accessing elements in a tuple. So, as we have discussed earlier, the index concept that is used to find out or to locate particular element. So, you can also say that for the tuple also, as in the list, that is 0 index. That means whatever the first element, the index value starts with the 0 and up to n, right. So, what is the syntax to access the element? So whatever the tuple name, valid identifier name, and then after you have to mention the index. So index may be starting from the 0, right? So remember here, whenever you are locating any of the element, in that case you have to use square bracket, but whenever you are creating the tuple, in that case you have to use parenthesis, right? As the same way you have already aware with the array concept. Now this is the program, you can get idea. We have created one tuple, then after another tuple you have created. Now suppose you want to fetch the value from the index 0. In that case you are mentioning tuple 1, that is our valid tuple identifier name. Then after in the square bracket you are mentioning the index 0. So whatever the value that is available at that particular index, that will be printed. Same way as in the list we have discussed, there is a feature in Python in list and tuple both. If you want to print the last element, in that case you can use negative index also. Also it can be possible to print list as well as tuple from the reverse side or from the last element. So for that you have to use that index in negative format. So you can observe in this program, if you are using -1, so the last element that will be printed. If you are using -2, then the second last element that will be printed. So you can also print from the reverse side, right? Then immutability in the tuple. So as we have already discussed that list that can be mutable, that means once you are creating the list, then after you can change it. But in the case of tuple, suppose once you are creating, then it cannot be changed. Whatever the elements you have included, that remains same throughout the program. So if we try to change that particular element by accessing that with the index value, then compiler will give you error message. You can observe on the program that tuple 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have created a tuple with 5 elements. Now you are trying to change the value of 0th index. Right now the 0th index having the value 1, you are trying to change with value, another value, say for example here in our example 30, and then after you are trying to print. So what happened, you can observe in the output, compiler will give you error message because tuples are immutable sequences, so you cannot change once you are creating, right? Then after indexing, as we have already discussed, if you want to fetch some of the element from the tuple as well as the list, in that case you are using this concept index. Also it supports the negative index. Suppose you want to print elements from the reverse location or from the end of particular tuple or the list, in that case you are using negative index. Here you can see the example. Suppose we have created one list and one tuple. Now suppose you want to print with some specific index value. We have printed 0th index, so first element will be printed. -1, if we are using as an index, in that case the last element will be printed. You can see the last statement in the program, tuple -2, so second last element that will be printed. So this way you can print the elements from the left as well as the right also, or you can say that from the reverse also. Now next is slicing. So till we have seen, suppose you want to access a single element, in that case you are using that single index value. But suppose you are requiring some bunch of element, or you can say that the elements in slice, in that case what is the requirement, you have to mention the range, right? So that range contains that beginning value, ending value, and another that is optional, that is the step value, right? So you can see the syntax here, sequence, whatever it may be, list, it may be tuple. What is the syntax? The start value you have to write, that is the index value you want to fetch, that you have to mention here in the start, then after colon sign, then after end. So up to which index, -1, because the range that is exclusive, right? So whatever the last element, -1 up to that element, that will be printed. And then after the step, that means in which interval you want to print whatever the elements available in the list or the tuple. Say for example, by default the step size or increment, that is 1, as you already aware in the loop concept, in for loop, that is the step value, by default it is 1. Now suppose you are mentioning here 2, then what happened? So first element that will be printed, then after it will skip 2 elements, and then after the third element will be printed. So what is the interval size that you have to define here in the step, right? So here the description will be given, start, that is normally the index value starts with the 0, and for stopping the slicing, exclusive, that means say for example your list size is 5, here the value of end is 5 minus 1, that is 4. Then after the step by default is 1, you can use accordingly what is your requirement. Then after here you can observe multiple usage of this start, end and as well as step value. Say for example variable start and end, so you can mention here beginning as well as the ending value for that particular printing of list or the tuple value. Then after start, end and step, here you are mentioning the step value, by default it is 1. In the previous case we have discussed, you are not mentioning the step value, that means it is 1. If you are mentioning here step value, then up to that interval the value will be printed. Then after colon end, that means by default the index starts with 0 and up to end, that means end minus 1 up to that location the elements will be printed if you are not mentioning here the start value. Then after variable start and colon, you are not mentioning the ending value, so it will print up to the end of the list or the tuple. Then after variable double colon minus 1, so it reverses the list by using the negative step. So whatever the tuple or the index, that will print from the reverse side or from the end of the elements. Then after where end and step, here as same as the previous, but beginning to end and 1 and the stop size that you are mentioning up to that will be printed. Then after again start, double colon and step, so it will extract a subset of element from start to the end of the list with step size that can be by default 1 or whatever you are entering here, right. Then after where, then after minus n and then after colon, so it will extract the last n element from the list or tuple, and then after colon minus l, so it will extract the list excluding the last n elements. So here that is the difference. So you can self-explanatory and you can use practice in the program also with all these different scenarios while printing the values of list as well as the tuple. You can see here all these with the help of one example. We have created one list, you are printing the list 1 from 1 to 4. So 1, that is our beginning value or beginning index value, and 4, that is the last, that is 4 minus 1. So up to 3 index value that will be printed. Then after elements till index 2, if you want to print the elements till index 2, in that case you can simply use colon and 3. So by default the index starts from 0 and 1, and then after 3, that means 3 minus 1, so index goes to up to 2. So those elements that will be printed. Then if you want to print alternate elements, in that case you can use here this step value double colon 2. So all the elements in the list or tuple that will be printed with the interval of 2. You can observe right hand side, the output will be also there. So 10, 30, 50, so alternate 1 by 1 alternate values that will be printed. And then after all elements from end to index 0, that means you want to print the list or tuple whatever you have created from the reverse side. In that case you can mention double colon and then after minus 1, here you can see in the output the value of that particular list that will be printed from the reverse location, that is EDCBA, right. So we are concluding our session here. In today's session we have discussed how to create tuple with the help of parenthesis and how to access elements from the tuple. We have also seen if you are trying to change the value once tuple is created, the error will be generated by the compiler. Also we have discussed, suppose you want to print the slice value or bunch of values in the tuple, then you can use the syntax start, end as well as the step with multiple combinations or colon and double colon, right. So in the next subsequent session we are continuing with some more advanced topic. Till then, happy learning, happy coding. Thank you.